Yeah, one thing I noted is that with this flag set, our racers are going to know what abilities our characters have ahead of time. They're static, they're not set to random. So, for example, if our racers find Terra, she comes with the all powerful Magitech ability. Magitech is going to give her Terra's original Magitech abilities, so all of the elemental beams, plus you've got the heal beam, and of course, everyone's favorite, the tech missile.
And I apologize. I had myself muted literally this entire time, so that is my bad. Try to balance a few different things here. So to give a quick sum up, since I listed out the flags and unfortunately they were on deaf ears, we're looking at chaotic shops. Shops are going to be more random and cost maybe a bit more. We have tougher enemies with 3 times progress. Standard Coliseum, tougher commands as Magre had just kind of listed out. Stats are going to be chaotic, anywhere from 40% to 200%. No magic and eight dragons for requirements. No characters, no espers. That is the quick rundown that we're gonna have. So my apologies for that. Not the best start, but I think hopefully we should be good in a second. Oh, Mulgray, can you quit out of the race real quick?
Sure.
So our runners are queued up, and we're going to get started in a second. So hopefully we'll get going. But yeah, I'm curious with this start, kind of what you end up doing. You know, I guess at this point, free checks are probably probably your safer bet here, since espers really don't seem to matter too much.
Yeah, our racers are also going to be faced with the challenge of knowing when to quit looking for characters and espers, because this is just a dragon hunt tonight. Normally in our standard flags, we've got that 6 character, 9 esper requirement, but that is not going to hold them back today.
That's right, and as we kind of see really quickly with the objectives flying through, enemies and bosses and dragons have higher levels. Dragons are also not scaled as well, so yeah, we don't have to worry about our checks as much. You don't have to worry about your characters and espers, but those dragons, your requirement to get in, are definitely going to be a problem. So our router's initial routing, or not routers, our runner's initial routing is probably going to be focused more on power than anything else. Checks are important, but kind of less so. Really, at this point, it's going to be levels and equipment, since espers really don't matter. If you're happy with your initial characters, you're probably good.
Yeah, so during this first phase, we do see our runners going for some standard looting locations. We've got Jex and Hefe. Sorry, we've got Jex and Narsh and Hefe in the Returner's Cave. Squack is heading over to Albrook right away to get a couple chests and peek some initial shops, looking for those high tier items, those ultra powerful swords, and maybe some elemental shields.
Yeah, one thing that we kind of talk about a lot in Worlds Collide is it's a very diverse randomizer. You know, you don't really play any 2 seeds alike. Strategy really changes on each run, and that also kind of works with the openers. A lot of randomizers I've seen have pretty standard openings, and while we have a lot of different elements, every runner has their kind of own take. You're seeing that with Squawks going to Albrook early, a pretty uncommon town. I like stopping there personally, but most runners it's not in their rotation. So kind of seeing how our different runners, what stores and what towns they hit first, really is kind of interesting. It'd be curious to see who ends up benefiting from some of this route divergence.
Absolutely. We've got Hefe going down to South Figaro. That's going to be the highest chest density town, but it's also one of the largest towns, and it's going to take a lot of time. Although he did just pick up a Thunder Shield, an important elemental protection and spell teaching item there. And then Squack started at Albrook, and now he's joined Hefe in South Figaro. So he's going to come grab all those chests and find some earrings in the shop, which is going to be very important for that power that Seto was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, earrings is a relic that I personally really like. I call it the Great Filler Relic. Earrings give you 25% more, an Illumina from Hefe and the side barrel there of the mansion. That is a very good pickup. But getting getting back to it, earrings give you 25% more magic damage, but they can stack. So 2 earrings will give you 50% increased magic damage. And most abilities in the game are magic based, so earrings are always a safe bet when it comes to relics, and a lot of runners will pick up a handful of them early on.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Illumina, that is the holy grail of offense for Final Fantasy VI, and interesting enough, earrings will boost the Pearl proc damage on that sword. But the location of that Illumina is interesting because not every runner will go check that side barrel. It's a little bit out of the way. It's a common check location, but not a mandatory check location for runners. So our viewers should watch out to see who does and does not pick up that Illumina.
It looks like Squawk also picked it up. Now, the interesting thing that we don't know yet is whether we can actually use this Illumina now or not. Gal does not start with a fight command, so we know that he can't use it, and it's not a guarantee that Cyan or Setzer can use it either. With our normal flags, I just need to double check whether that's the case here, but with our normal flags, equipment is based off of vanilla, so anyone who could equip the item in the original game can equip it, and then on top of it, there's a 30% chance that any character can equip that item as well. So if you had, say, Terra in your party, you would know that you're good on an Illumina, but with Cyan and Setzer, until someone actually goes and tries to equip it, we don't know yet whether that is immediately useful or not.
Yeah, with this draft set of flags specifically, it looks like our racers are going to have original equipment permissions plus 50%. So each character will have a 50% chance of being able to equip items that they don't normally have equip permissions for. So there's a very good chance that one of the 3 starting characters should be able to equip that Illumina.
And if not, hopefully the 4th character, or whatever the case may be, will also be able to equip it. But definitely a good item, not necessarily for the early game. The way the kind of damage formulas work, Illumina, while good, is not broken early game. But once you get some later levels, you get some strength and some magic, Illumina ends up being very, very good, and of course has plenty of other properties available to it that really edge it out over other weapons.
Yeah, and we do see Jex pick up that Illumina, so all 3 of our racers are going to be on an even playing field in terms of that game-breaking sword. But speaking specifically about early game offense, we saw Squack pick up an Ice Rod in the South Figueroa basement, and it looks like our other 2 racers are going to be finding that very soon. Now, in this flag set, you can buy breakable rods in shops, so they will be looking for that, keeping an eye out in both item and weapon shops. But what does breakable rods do for early game offense in Worlds Collide?
So, with rods, breaking a Fire Rod, Ice Rod, or Thunder Rod will do the equivalent level 2 spell. However, it's a little bit more than just casting, say, Fire 2 on your own, because a rod ignores magic defense. It also, whatever variance roll you would normally have on your spell, it always rolls the highest. So breaking Ice Rod on an enemy that is weak to ice is going to do massive damage even early game. But on top of that, for early game offense, we did see Hefe pick up Super Balls in World of Balance South Figueroa. I don't think Squawk went there, and I did not see Jex go there either. Super Balls is another great item like the Ice Rod. It is also a consumable. If you use it, it is gone forever, but it does a random amount of damage, and typically pretty good amount, normally in the 4 digits. So getting Super Balls early lets you really take those bosses out early, and potentially with these unscaled dragons, maybe even sneaking in an early dragon kill. So that is a good pickup by Hefe that will give him a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and we see both Hefe and Squawk going into the World of Ruin South Figueroa, so double dipping into that very chest-dense check. But it is one of the larger cities, like I mentioned earlier, which is probably why Squack didn't go up and check that item shop and find the Super Balls. That's just one of the things that makes Worlds Collide interesting. It's seeing how the runners solve their routing and what they choose to prioritize, the time versus the possibility of finding those high tier or early game, late game offense items in the shop.
Yeah, and Worlds Collide is all about trade-offs. It's all about risk-reward, both bigger risks and smaller risks. As an example, I normally do not go to that item shop because it is a little more out of the way. You can't exit to the east in the World Balance South Figueroa, so if you go over to the item shop, you have to come down those steps and come back out to the west side of town. and that could be why our other runners skipped it. It's a slight more of a time investment, but in this case, it paid dividends for Hefe. And we love seeing that with World Class. We love seeing that kind of on-the-fly decision-making, balancing these risk rewards to try to both optimize your time, but also knowing when to take risks for a potential good payout that will save you more time in the long run.
Yeah, and as we approach 8 minutes into the run, we see Hefe going for the rare far chest over here,
yeah.
the barrel. We'll check out what this is. It's an X potion, so not terrible, but not really maybe worth that time investment. As I was saying, we approach the 8-minute mark in the race, and our runners are going to start thinking about their first checks here. So you mentioned free checks earlier. With this requirement of 8 dragons, what are you heading to first with the checks available?
So that's a good question. You know, one thing I love about Worlds Collide is how customizable we are. I run a lot of standard race, and this is going to play a lot different. Since the dragons are only requirements, that's really going to change potentially how our runners play, because this is very atypical. It's very different, and I am sure they're trying to figure out what the best strategies are with this. Progress or scaling is at a ×3, so I would pick anything that ends up having fixed encounters. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing Serpent's Trench with Gao, and I'm seeing Roll the Balance Doma both have encounters, because levels are going to be important. Since we really only care about dragons, it does not matter what checks we go to, because the rewards really don't matter once we get a 4th character we like. The only thing that matters is getting characters open up more checks and to gain levels. And so at this point, anything that's fixed encounters, anything that has one or more boss fights that I think I can take out quickly, are all beneficial, so I can get powerful enough to take out those dragons.
Yeah, and another popular strategy that's been gaining traction in the community is to knock out a bunch of free checks earlier and then take down an early dragon. We know that all of our racers will be taking down all 8 dragons tonight, but do you think that that's going to come into their decision calculus as to whether or not to advance scaling when they're going to be taking these experience-heavy dragon fights?
That's a typical, pretty popular strategy with standard race. However, these dragons being scaled kind of puts most of them past the range of a Super Ball. You know, maybe something like Ice Dragon you can take out with 2-3 Super Balls, but if you run to a Storm Dragon, who I believe has 50k HP, early game you're just not going to be able to do enough damage, even if he is being nice with his offense. So I think you actually end up taking the levels here through other rates, or through other avenues, because I think it's just going to be too hard at level 3 or even 6-10 to start taking out these dragons. I think you have to be comfortably closer to 20 before you can kind of really start having a chance.
Okay, so we see Jex and Squack are still in their looting and shopping phases, whereas Hefe has already gone and completed his Velt check and gotten the first Esper of the game.
Yeah, and I think it's a good play by Squawks and Jex, because one of the starting abilities is Throw, and so far I've not seen a lot of throwables at all. I've not really seen Shurikens or Schemes for Shell, probably due to the chaotic shops that we have, and if our runners have picked up, I've missed them. So that is definitely something that maybe our runners are looking for to kind of get a little bit more offense before they get going.
That's an excellent point. Throw, while it's not Magitech, is still one of the best abilities in the game. Oh, there we see Jex find some Shuriken, so he's off to the races. And
Bolt Edges, too. So, he's definitely good. Whereas Hefe decides to take an early boss here. Smart move, in my opinion, with that Search the Skies, because it's very low risk. You save beforehand, you do it, you get a bad boss, you just reset out, minimum time loss. But in this case, he's going to get, a item or an Esper, and of course you're hoping for an item here, since Espers are not very helpful, but also you get the experience, and picking up a very good weapon at that with the Valiant Knife. Do you want to explain to our viewers what is so great about the Valiant Knife?
Sure, the Valiant Knife is an item that certainly I overlooked in vanilla Final Fantasy VI, but in Worlds Collide, it is a premium weapon. The Valiant Knife is a mid-tier knife, equipable mainly by Locke, but by a couple other characters as well in vanilla. And it's going to do more damage the less health you have. So as you get damage from boss abilities, or sometimes our racers will even damage their own characters, that missing health will be added on to your damage for the Valiant Knife. It's very effective when paired with the Offering, allowing 4 times that missing health damage. So if you do find a Valiant Knife, you're looking for an Esper with that 100% bonus to HP on every level, and then maybe some items that can boost your max health, like a red cap, and then you're not healing that character between fights. You're leaving them stay damaged so they can keep capitalizing on that missing health damage.
And with this flag set in particular, Valiant Knife has a little bit more of an upside because since we know it's to take out all 8 dragons, we also know we are going to get a muscle belt for our troubles. I believe it's the Skull Dragon that drops the muscle belt. So you know you're going to get that increased HP, the 50% increase from the muscle belt as well come late game. Valiant Knife's not going to be that great initially, but even if you don't get a Genji Glove, even if you don't get more than one, even if you don't get an offering or a dragon horn, even on its own, come late game with that muscle belt, it's going to do a serviceable amount of damage. All of our runners, as they're going, they are not only thinking about where to go next and how to take on the problems right in front of them, they're also thinking about what's the end game going to be like. Because there is no silver bullet here. There is no item that will be good for the entire run. So you're trying to figure out what are my characters going to look like at the end, and seeing stuff like an Illumina and seeing something like a Valiant Knife, they might not be immediately useful now, but you know that you're going to have some pretty solid end game builds most likely, and you can start then building towards those.
Yeah, talking about that endgame offense, Illumina is always a solution for the endgame. I did notice that Gao is able to equip it, but Gao starts with the Rage and X-Magic abilities, so there's no guarantee that he has reliable damage. But Rage in this flag set starts with 100 Rages, and I haven't seen our racers look at those Rage options yet, but with 100 options, there's more than likely a very good physical ability for him to capitalize on that Illumina if our racers check that out.
Yeah, and I believe the battle command of the Rage will still proc the Illumina's Pearl proc too. So that means 50% of the time you should be able to use the full power of the Illumina. And kind of looking at this, we're seeing a big route divergence right now. Squawks is doing Serpent's Trench, which is a good early pick here with its fixed encounters. Since you might have to do this check anyway, getting 4 battles that you know you're guaranteed to get, especially when you find a Boris here who gives a good amount of XP. If he can survive this will be a good boon on his part. Whereas Hefe is doing World of Balance Doma, where we have these optional battles, and that can be also good because if they give a good amount of experience, you can quickly talk to all these soldiers and do multiple battles in a row. It is much quicker than walking around and trying to get random fights. And on the third end, we have Jex here doing Zozo, and he does run into a Gigantos. He resets out, but that Gigantos is worth a lot of experience. So if he thinks he has an opportunity to take it, he might. It's Narsh in the beginner's house. If he can figure out a way to take that Gigantos out, he can really shoot up an experience as well.
Yeah, interesting to keep in mind that enemy level scaling is at 3 times characters plus espers plus dragons, and Hefe with the early check starting as opposed to the additional looting and shopping already has 5 characters and 1 esper, so his enemies are at level 18, and that's why we see him taking those grind fights at the Doma Siege, trying to catch up in those levels and get ahead of the enemy levels.
Yes, and the really important thing for Hefe, this is something we did not mention earlier. We mentioned that checks were maybe not as important since dragons were what you need to go for, but there is one reason to do checks, and that is to find characters, because not every dragon is available from the get-go. With a normal seed, you can always reach 6 of them without any problems, but you cannot get to Ancient Castle without Egder, and you cannot get to Storm Dragon, the Mount Zozo one, without Cyan. We, of course, started with Cyan, but all of our runners were on lookout for Egder, and Hefe has found them, which means that he now knows there is nothing stopping him outside of offense from killing those dragons and getting to the tower.
That's right. We're also going to be on the lookout for Locke for entrance into the Phoenix Cave, so that we can complete all 8 dragons.
And something that our chat pointed out that I noticed on the top screen is that Jack, while not doing a check, he of course has also figured out that checks maybe aren't as important. He did run to Stray Cat in World of Ruin Narsh. We start with Rage, we have an Illumina. Stray Cat's Rage does 4 times physical damage. That's a very good pickup for Jack that our other runners did not get, and most likely won't get, since you would only find it if you're doing grind fights here. Combine that with the Gigantos, that is actually a very big pickup on Jack's part. And speaking of big pickups, SquackMcquack picking up an experience egg with the Serpent's Trench.
Wow, that's a really lucky reward that's going to boost his levels from fairly early on. He's at level 6 right now, so he's going to be able to take advantage of that for the entire game. One thing to note with Hefe finding Edgar is he's now got a natural Atma weapon user. So once Edgar hits level 32, he'll be able to unlock the full power of that Atma weapon, and that is another endgame offense solution found, in addition to that Illumina.
That's right. I believe Edgar can also equip the Illumina naturally too, correct?
That is correct, but I believe I saw him equip it on the Gao, so he may be looking for a physical rage.
That's true, though it's still only 50% if you're doing a non-physical rage. However, he runs into Guardian here. Luckily, scaling's not up that much, and with Super Balls, he should hopefully be able to clear right through this Guardian. One thing I'm really enjoying so far this race is that all three of the runners have something going for them that's really spectacular. We have Hefe over here with nothing proccing his progress again on like dragons, whereas if our other runners don't check Doma right away, they are going to be walled off from Edgar. We have Jack picking up a good amount of experience in that Stray Cat Rage, which really could give him a powerful endgame build. And Squawk's pick up that experience egg early means that slapping that on someone could get a very powerful character very quickly. So I'm very curious to see what kind of strategy, which one of these routing decisions is really going to work out in the end, because all three are viable and all three have great upside.
Absolutely, and one of the best things about that Experience Egg and Illumina combo is that physical attacks will benefit from levels more so than Magic. Magic is king in Final Fantasy VI early game, but at high levels, physical attacks can surpass it and even leapfrog past it with things like the Offering. So check and see if our runners are taking extra monsters in a box to find that potential Offering solution later.
That's right, and definitely a smart play, kind of doing that, finding that value knife early, where Squawks has not picked it up yet, and that might change some of his monster in the box routing. Looks like Squawks changed his name. I didn't pick up what he renamed his characters to. Did you happen to catch that?
I saw some of it. There was some chat and some stay. I know that he wanted to use some rename cards in the last community race that he participated in, and he didn't get a chance to due to some bad luck. Chat is very something. He's pretty quick on that menu.
Hopefully we'll catch it. Well, you'll catch it next time he gets into a battle. Of course, I hope he keeps the right party order, or else later in the seed it might be a little harder to de-chipper what he's trying to say.
Alright, so chat is very Pogger for all of our Twitch viewers. Now, the interesting thing to note, though, is that Pogger is on Umaro, one of the least desirable characters, just because you can't control him. So, chat might get some new descriptive adjectives if he can find some more rename cards and he swaps out Umaro for Edgar here.
No, see, that is great routing by Squawks here. Putting Umaro in the 4th slot means he can now have flexibility to keep swapping him out to someone else, change up the phrasing. If he had Umaro in the 1st slot, it would make the entire thing nonsensical, but now he can pivot to some other saying. So, smart moves by Squawk to have his party structured in that way.
Okay, we see Jex now jumping into that Serpent Trench, so after a few fights, he's going to find that same Experience Egg and be off to the races. Whereas Hefe has taken the free check at the Figaro Throne, unlocked by his earlier Edgar pickup, and he finds Celeste there. Celeste, our Magitech Knight, and I didn't see what abilities she comes with. Did you catch it?
I did not catch it. Let's see if our tracker has it thrown up, but I think Celeste is a very interesting pickup here because, like I said, Hefe now doesn't need characters. He doesn't, of course, need Espers. He just needs dragons, and you need to be able to fight the dragons. So I'm wondering, if I'm Hefe, do I just do all of MTech? Get the scaling from the bosses, get 4 bosses in, and get a bunch of fixed encounters, walk away with hopefully a bunch of experience, and then just start flying through all your checks to kill the dragons. Is that what you end up doing? And Celeste kind of gives you that option of maybe a lot of experience in a short amount of time.
But most importantly, that banging soundtrack in Magitech means it's a mandatory check for pretty much everyone.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I totally slept on that. Yes, every top-tier runner knows that really you should base all your routing based off of the music in the area.
Yeah, that's one thing that keeps me from using the Antunes option in our seed bot that can randomize the music. I just gotta have my Magitech every seed.
So what you have to hope for is it randomizes that somewhere else, like the Overworld, then you can hear it even more often.
Alright, now we're going to need some customized sounds so we can make that happen.
Now, one thing that's interesting is that there is one check that Hefe does have to do. He's required. He must do the Figueroa basement at some point in order to get access to Ancient Castle. So that is one thing he kind of has to factor into his routing.
Yeah, I do like that because it's typically seen as one of the slowest and least desirable checks in Worlds Collide, just because it takes so long to clear the Figueroa basement, move the castle in and out of the desert, find the strange stratum, and walk through the cave to the ancient castle. But it's a mandatory run to get that dragon, so everybody's going to have to do it. Personally, I like seeds that force you into checks that we don't see very often. It makes for a nice change up on the experience.
What is with these Gigases everywhere? We ran into Boris in the Serpent's Trench, we ran into Gigantus in the Monster in a Box, now Hefe taking fights in the overworld in front of Narsh, not a place you typically see, but really benefiting from some good experience off that Boris.
Yeah, so we do have an official update here. Chat is now very Edgar, in case chat was wondering. I don't know how chat feels about that, but it looks to be official.
The question is, did he pick up a 5th rename card? And if not, how is he going to route that shopping in with the rest of his routing?
I believe he only bought 4 rename cards, even though they only cost about 6 gil, so he's going to have to live with that Edgar for quite a while.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think what you do here, because, this kind of run puts me out of my comfort zone personally. Having to really turn the idea of checks on their head, where you really don't care so much about them at the moment. Thinking mostly of Hefe, since he's the only one who now has complete freedom to go wherever he wants to go. So, if you're a runners, what do you do next? Do you start taking dragons even though you don't have Edgar? If you're Hefe, what dragon do you go for first, or what else do you kind of do to cement your offense and your levels?
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind for me is that level scaling of 3x characters, Espers plus dragons. So we know that they have to keep searching for characters until they find all of the mandatory characters to unlock the dragons. But beyond that, I'm thinking maybe you want to slowly progress the scaling so that each of your dragons is progressively going to give you more and more XP, so that you can have that power by the time it comes to Final Kefka. Now, I haven't done any math on this, but I do think we'll see some fairly high levels for this Final Kefka battle. Is that your impression as well?
Yeah, I think so. Especially fighting all these unscaled dragons, right? We're going to get the regular experience from them, so we're going to get a lot of experience from every single dragon. One thing to keep in mind is that experience is at party highest with a 0.5 multiplayer. So someone like Hefe here, it doesn't really matter how many checks you do or don't, because dragons are going to be just as strong anyway. Your experience is going to be based off your strongest person. So these experience eggs with Jack and Squawk are really going to start being beneficial the farther they go, because as one party member gets a lot higher, they're going to get more experience from everyone else.
That's a great point on the experience eggs playing in with the party highest XP scaling. But I'm wondering if that was part of what led Jex to take those grind fights in the Narsh near the beginner house. He's trying to advance his party highest before he advances the scaling. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely... That was probably his intentions. I think in general, levels is kind of what you need to take these dragons out, no matter what you end up getting. And I'd be kind of curious afterward to ask our runners some of their strategies with it, because this is very atypical, and I think playing around with experience and figuring out your scaling exactly is really going to be the key to winning this seed.
Yeah, and now we see Squack over in the Dome of Dream, or Nightmare, as it looks on his screen right now, because he's run into an early Doomgaze. Now, he didn't get party wiped by the instant level 5 death spell, but he is having a tough time of it. Doomgaze is one of the scariest bosses in the game, with all of his AoE attacks and his ability to cast Doom and instant kill your party.
Yeah, he's, especially this early, he has high magic defense as well. He has a bunch of mean attacks, and if this arrow doesn't kill him, he has to revive someone rather soon, because you can always throw Doom out as well. So a single character with high defense is also not safe. One thing that I think a lot of runners have to kind of learn is it is important to know when to reset, when to escape. even if you can get through Doom Caves, is it worth the time loss here compared to maybe coming back a little bit later and trying him when you're a little bit stronger? Because right now we've already looked, he's been here for about a minute and a half or so and still fighting through those Doom Gaze. So knowing when to know to reset out and approach it from a different angle is an important skill that runners have to learn.
Yeah, and that's something that I personally struggle with, but you got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. Interesting note on Jex's race here is he's running up the Fanatic's Tower to take the dragon, even though he doesn't have Strago. But he got some important information that our other two runners don't have, and he now knows the location of Locke. So he knows that Locke's dragon is now gated behind Strago. So if he's doing any peekable checks where he can peek the location of Strago, he will definitely be completing them.
So a little bit of correction on that. You can get the Phoenix Cave dragon without Locke. You only need Locke to get the reward at the end of Phoenix Cave. You can go into Phoenix Cave without him.
Great correction. Thank you.
Yeah, so 6 dragons are ungated. You can get the Ice Dragon in Narsh. You can get Phoenix Cave. You can get Fanatic's Tower. You can get the Opera House Dragon. You can get the Toon Kefix Tower. No matter what characters you have. Mount Zozo is gated behind Cyan, and Ancient Castle is gated behind Egner. So you do need those 2 characters, or you need Y NPC remove on in order to get those last 2 dragons.
Okay, so with Y remove not being available, Cyan being a starter character, all of our runners are going to have to do that Doma Siege check to get Edgar, and that will unlock all 8 dragons for them.
Right, and that's why FA has a huge advantage right now, because he has complete freedom to do whatever he wants. Our other runners, if they end up getting all the other dragons but don't check Doma Siege, and then especially if they end up unlocking more characters that have more checks, they might be hunting around the wrong places for that Edgar. So this could eventually be a big time save on Hefe's part. We did see Jack white to the Ice Dragon. Ice Dragon, even the weakest, is still rather strong when you are scaled in low level, especially with, this is interesting. We have no magic with Espers. You can only use magic and items here in Fanatic's Tower, so you better be very comfortable with what breakable items and super balls you have in order to take out whatever dragon you fight here.
Yeah, and we see Hefe going for that Ice Dragon right now, but even with Jex wiping to it, he now has some important information, and that's what the dragon is there, and that elemental weakness and protection, he can prepare for it and be very ready for it the next time he faces that Ice Dragon.
It's a very good point, especially with fire schemes around. If you get a flame shield, because Ice Dragon, he has very low magic defense, he has very low HP, and he is very weak to fire. So even at low level, you can really do a lot of damage quickly if you have a few, like a flame shield and a fire rod or something, or a flame shield and a super ball. He can go down very quickly.
Yeah, it looks like Hefe's going to go into that store of super balls that he started with and just use those to take down the Ice Dragon. So I anticipate he will be able to complete this check and mark off a dragon for his objectives.
And I think
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, as we see both of our other runners fighting Dullahan in the Search the Skies check. So this check can only reward an item or an Esper, so perhaps our runners are going for a high tier item or maybe looking for an Esper bonus.
Yeah, and Hefe over here, he used all Super Balls. Super Balls, of course, are random damage, which ends up working maybe a little against him, as he is now officially out of Super Balls and only has Bolt 2 on one character as a form of offense. He has no other offense at the moment, so he might have hit a point where there's not too much more he can do. If this is not going to be enough to be able to cut through his last little bit of HP.
Yeah, Hefe's running into something that I have personally fallen into several times, and that's when you take Gao in, he can't do anything except for use items. Because of an interaction with the vanilla Gao mechanics with Rage and Leap, his abilities are blacked out in the Fanatic's Tower, and he becomes less useful. So even though Gao is wearing an Illumina and maybe has some physical rages available, he can't access them inside the Fanatic's Tower.
And he smartly revived Gao there, knowing he had a elemental shield on him in order to break that thunder shield, but it's still not enough damage. He must be very close to killing this dragon, but not quite there yet. So resorting to random Magicite summons, getting a Bismarck, which should hopefully do a tiny bit of damage, really resorting to whatever little bit he can find to get that last little bit of damage he thinks is remaining on that dragon.
Yeah, we see Jex complete that Search the Skies check and get his Valiant Knife, so he may now be taking additional monsters in a box looking for that offering reward from Katana Soul. And Hefe is also going to reset out. I was wondering if his advanced scaling of 6 characters and 1 Esper, making for a level 21. Sorry, did we say dragons are scaled or not? I can't
No,
remember.
they are unscaled. That is part of the challenge here, is that they are going to be very powerful dragons early on.
Yeah, okay. Well, looks like our runners just aren't powerful enough yet, but Hefe now has that additional info that Jex has of the Ice Dragon being a Fanatic's Tower, so he can come back maybe with some ice protection, maybe some flame shields. I know that he saw them for sale in Jador, so he knows where to get those to at least negate ice damage, or maybe go buy a flame shield just to break it and cast that Max Fire 3 on the Ice Dragon when he comes back.
Yeah, I think right now he is struggling to have much money, it looks like. I see some maybe an elixir he can sell and stuff like that, but it looks like maybe he's trying to buy, another Super Bowl or two, but the money's just not there for a Flame Shield right now without going and doing something else. If I was him, I would think that being able to get through this Ice Dragon might be the thing to kind of break you open. You're going to get a lot of experience. You might get a good item. That could be the beginning of your offense, and you can start rolling from there. Would be the hope I would have if I was Hefe.
Sure, but as we said earlier, this is not a standard seed. This is a different objective set than our racers are used to in standard race objectives. And so how to crack this seed is going to be a bit of a mystery, and we see a little bit of struggle all around as they attempt to figure out how to crack this nut.
One thing I'm curious about from our runners is, with unscaled dragons, how many of them are going to resort to the status effect route? It's a little bit harder without having magic available to you, but a lot of these dragons are susceptible to a lot of different status effects. Gold dragon can be poisoned. You can muddle. Red dragon, white dragon can be muted. Less options available since we don't have spells to learn, but there are options to take out some of these dragons early. You also have options like the Ragnarok Esper having a very low percentage chance of just straight up killing a dragon. I'm wondering if any of our runners ends up pulling out some of that deeper Final Fantasy VI knowledge to take out some dragons early.
Yeah, that's a great point. Personally, as a newer runner to Worlds Collide, I have just about memorized all of the dragon's elemental weaknesses, but I haven't memorized all their status weaknesses. So Worlds Collide, while being very accessible to new runners like myself, rewards deep vanilla knowledge. And some of our runners definitely have that, and it'll be interesting to see, as you say, if those status weaknesses come into effect during this dragon hunt.
Yeah, one thing I would encourage newer runners to do, if speedrunning this is interesting, don't feel intimidated by, thinking that it's hard or anything like that. We have plenty of events we do regularly. Come join them. And when it comes to the dragons, like status weaknesses, that's how I learned. I joined a tournament within my first, few weeks of playing Worlds Collide, and it was one where the flags changed every week, and eventually unscaled dragons were added in, and I kind of had to learn while practicing. And it was a really great thing for me. That's why I know them now, and it was a great way for me to improve the game in general. So we currently have the Ultras League going on right now. If you want to maybe explain that a little bit.
Sure, the Ultras League is a league that we just started up. We're currently in Season 1. Each season will run for 8 weeks. Ultras League is divided into 4 divisions. We have the top tier division of Mega Elixir. Next comes the Elixir division, followed by the 3rd division Potion, and the 4th division of Tonic. Each racer in the league was categorized during a preseason into these initial seedings, and based on their average times from 3 preseason races. Throughout the season, our divisions will compete against the same race in an async format, so completing on their own time at any time through the 7-day week. And the top tier times are rewarded with the highest points. And the top people in each division will be promoted to the next tier up, whereas the bottom people in each division will fall out and go to a lower division. The end goal of Ultras League is that racers should be competing against people of similar ability. So if you're newer to Worlds Collide, you're going to be starting out in that Tonic division, and you're going to be competing against other newer racers. Personally, that's extremely, beneficial to me as a newer runner. I ended up in the potion division, and the potion division is pretty competitive, but we all have very comparable times. So whereas we can't hold a candle to the Mega Elixir right now, we have very competitive and fun races amongst each other without getting blown out by the more experienced racers every week.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially kind of the weekly non-elimination basis with similar skill set. I think it offers a lot different than a normal tournament. It really, everyone in the community is really into it and has been constantly engaged for multiple weeks with it because it is exciting. You know, there's something to play for every single week, no matter who you are. And so I, encourage anyone to check it out. Getting back to the race on hand, Hefe gets his first dragon along with a whole bunch of experience, putting him in a pretty good position right now. Whereas Squawk is trying to take out that Doomgaze again. It looked like he was taking some battles in the Dream itself and put Umaro in his party over Edgar, which is an interesting take. I'm curious to kind of see what his strategy there is. Meanwhile, Jex going a different route, taking out his last required check with that Figaro basement in order to maybe go take out the ancient castle dragon.
Yeah, now the first check of the Figaro basement is somewhat feasible. He knows that there's no character reward down there, so it's either an Esper or an item. Also, good to note the chat is very Pogger once again. But Umaro's Snow Muffler did not help him against the ice-heavy Doomgaze.
No, and he's doing a lot of damage to that Doomgaze, but his scaling is 15 levels over at the moment. So just hopefully he doesn't have a lot of HP left. But that Doomgaze is going to be surprisingly tough at this point. Meanwhile, Hefe is taking on more enemies, or forgot to equip his Moogle Charm, something that all runners have done at some point or another when swapping out people. Sometimes you just kind of forget, then you take a random battle when you didn't want to and have to kind of deal with that time loss. Happens, to all of us, every once in a while.
Oh, of course. And Hefe is on his way to slay his second dragon. He's going to go to the Mount Zozo check, unlocked, of course, by Cyan. You can find some love letters at the top of the mountain. But more importantly, he's going to find a dragon up there. And if he's able to take this one out, he's going to get off to the lead in terms of slaying dragons tonight.
Yeah, and Jack's not too far behind him. I presume by doing the basement so early that Ancient Castle was his next stop, which means he'll be fighting a dragon as well. And that kind of longer period of time to go through the basement and the castle is something all of our runners are going to have to do. So even if it looks like Hefe is in the lead now, that number might not be telling the full story. We'll kind of see after a few checks where everyone is, but I would wager that Jack is not too far behind him when it comes to at least progress for dragons.
Oh, you can never count Jex out in a race. Even when it looks like he's behind, he finds a way to get back into it. Squack looks like he was successful in taking out the Doomgaze, and he's advanced onto the train portion of Cyan's Dream. Also, another semi-peekable check there. He knows that he will not be getting a character from the Doma Dream second check. It is a 3-part check. And he's going to go through the train puzzle here and then go fight a boss and find out what his reward is from the dream.
Yeah, I'm curious his logic for going through the dream. Unless someone has sword tech, it's not a huge upside because it doesn't get you in closer to any dragons, and you're really getting 3 checks but only 2 bosses, which means that you might get even further behind scaling if you pick up all three checks, assuming all of them are not dead. So definitely a risky move by Squawk. So I'd be curious to talk to him afterward, in case I am missing something with this routing strategy.
Yeah, if he takes off the Moogle Charm here, we can say that he went into Doma Dream so that he could get Umaro in Magitech armor, which is one of those golden eggs, golden Easter eggs for Worlds Collide. Only found here, never in vanilla.
Well, also, the other advantage, too, something we've seen some runners do recently, is taking off the Moogle Charm here and getting some battles with that Magitech. If your offense is a little lacking, then you're going to get some crazy offense for a few screens. If you find someone with good experience, that might be enough to kind of jumpstart you forward a little bit more.
Yep, so it looks like Hefe found the blue dragon at Mount Zozo and will be making that attempt as Jex is sinking that castle into the sand and going towards Ancient Castle.
Yeah, and with Hefe here, we're really seeing how mean these unskilled dragons can be. Blue Dragon, in my opinion, probably the meanest of all the dragons. All of them, of course, have their ups and downs, but him and Storm Dragon are definitely tough, and we're seeing that with his clean sweeps, just cutting right through Hefe. Even though Hefe is ahead of everyone when it comes to levels, you're really seeing the strength of these dragons and why a dragon hunt for unskilled dragons can be rather brutal.
Yeah, especially early on when not all of your characters have premium armor and shields for that elemental protection, and that is a wipe, unfortunately. But the dragons have some pretty nasty AoE damage, and they can hit it pretty rapidly and with counterattacks. So you really need to be prepared if you're going to be taking on a dragon that's about 40 levels higher than your party.
Yeah, and Hefe's in a bad spot here because he's already climbed all the way up this mountain. If he warps out and doesn't take this dragon, he has to come back to fight it. Unlike a normal run where you maybe say, okay, I don't need that dragon, you just continue on with your run. He needs to kill this dragon, so if he doesn't have the options now, it's very similar to Fnatic's Tower where it's going to be a big time waste to reset out, go do something else, and then come back later. It's definitely a tough decision on his part.
Yeah, and we see Jex find the gold dragon at the bottom of the ancient castle, so he's going to be faced with a similar situation as Hefe right now with the long walk. Unfortunately, the ancient castle cannot be broke out of, so it's kind of a do or die moment for Jex. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, both these are very strong dragons. I would put them definitely in the top 50% when it comes to dragons. Jex has the advantage of this gold dragon, of course, being lightning elemental, and we know that there's at least one Thunder Shield too, it looks like. So he knows that two of his characters are probably pretty well protected here, which means this fight should be pretty decent for him. Whereas Hefe wisely saved in another spot before he went in the Zozo. So loading that save up to save himself a little bit of time, warping out, and he will go to fight that blue dragon another day, it seems like.
Yeah, Hefe seems pretty determined to start his dragon hunt. He's gone to World of Ruin Narsh, which is where the vanilla ice dragon spot is. So once he climbs this mountain, he can take on another dragon. He can also take an optional Tritalk fight to fight another random boss and possibly get an Esper or high tier item reward. If you're running up here to fight this dragon, are you going to take that Tritalk fight?
No, I don't think you do, because one thing you have to remember is that even once you get your dragons, you still have bosses in the tower. And since level scaling is based off characters, espers, and dragons, any additional character esper you take is just going to make the bosses in the final dungeon stronger. So it's very rare to have a run where you're going into the final dungeon, with less than 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 checks, right? We're going to go in here, if you're Hefe right now and you only take out dragons, you're going to go in with 7 checks. So even at a scaling factor of 3, those bosses are going to be weak in the tower. So you want to keep the amount of checks you have as low as possible.
Oh no, Hefe's found the dirt dragon at the top of Narsh Mountain, and it opens up with a brutal quake, wiping out 3 of his characters. His bad luck with these high AoE dragons continues. Dirt dragon is pretty feared. Would you add this to one of your top least desirable dragons to encounter early on?
Where he is on the tier list for me depends solely on if he opens his Quake or not. I find that he is not a terrible dragon if he decides not to use Quake at the beginning, but if he does, you're seeing the result right here. It can absolutely destroy someone. Hefe unfortunately did not save at the top of Narsh. If he did, it would be very easy to reset and try again, because it is not guaranteed that Dirt Dragon starts with the Quake. So you can keep beating your head at it and try again. He's not too hard of a dragon, assuming he decides not to use that spell.
Alright, Hefe has wiped at 2 dragons now. Looks like he's going to change up his strategy. He's maybe going for those flame shields that we saw him. Oh, they were thunder shields. Okay, that might help him a little bit. But he's going for definitely some more elemental protection to help those dragon battles. And Squack looks like he's up there in Daryl's tomb, continuing to take a divergent path of just doing some checks for characters, espers, and item rewards. We'll see how it plays out for him in the end. It's really, for me, one of the most interesting parts of this flag set is seeing the way that these racers are going to solve the puzzle.
Yeah, and one thing I think that Hefe maybe his plan is buying the Thunder Shields not for elemental protection, though he does know he needs to fight the Gold Dragon at some point. But remember, the Blue Dragon is weak to Thunder, so he's right next door. You know, he just can fly back to Zozo, so it could be that he wants to pick up that Thunder Shield to just get that little bit more damage in to break and really kind of maybe push him past that fight.
Great point. Just like we talked about earlier with breaking those rods, breaking a shield is actually going to throw out the tier 3 spell. So it's pretty common to see those quad 9s damage caps when you break a shield against something with an elemental weakness. Looks like Squack has found Toilet Atma, one of Worlds Collide's favorite memes, and he is fighting it. He hasn't reset out of it, even though he did see that Genji Glove sleeps there. So it looks like he does want that Genji Glove to prepare maybe for some late game offense.
Well, not only that, that means this experience is free. That Genji Glove's not going to increase progress for the other bosses. And we know that Toilet Atma gives a whole bunch of experience, though that Quake coming out might spell disaster for Squawks. Oh, 2 people stand, so that's good. But yes, you know, if I'm Squawks and I see it's a dead check, I'm happy, because it means I'm getting experience and nothing else, a lot of experience, and nothing else is getting stronger.
Yeah, that's really just another difference between this flag set and our standard race. It's pretty frequent that you'll see a racer reset out of that check if they see it's a dead check. Dead check meaning not a character or esper, but in this flag set, as you note, they kind of prefer it.
Yeah, and the answer question in chat, someone asked about the non-scale dragons in experience. So experience scaling is based off party highest at a 0.5 scaling factor. So that means that they're only going to give experience proportional to whoever is the highest person in the party. So in theory, it should be about equal as as you level up. In the case of Hefe, with Gal being almost 8 levels below everyone else, he should hopefully catch up very quickly since he'll be in experience equal to, say, Sester's level. Whereas with Jek and Squawks, they both have access to an experience egg. I'll have to check to see their characters, but it could be that it looks like Squawks has someone about 4 levels higher than everyone else. So that's going to edge out a little bit more experience in the long run with these dragons.
Yeah, and Hefe has continued his dragon hunt. He seems pretty determined to try to knock out all of these requirements right away. He's found the red dragon in the Opera House. The red dragon, of course, being a fire dragon, weak to ice. And he is doing some damage to him. He hasn't taken any wipe or any character deaths like we saw with other dragons. So hopefully he fares well here and is able to knock another one off his list.
Yeah, especially because he's been struggling a bit. I've said it before, but you're really seeing kind of how strong unscaled dragons can be. Hefe's offense is probably the best of the 3. He's doing some good damage for his levels, and yet he is still struggling because these guys, they don't mess around.
Yeah, levels are king in terms of Final Fantasy VI. They add additional damage for both your magic and your physical, and I believe they come into play on your defense as well. Is that correct?
Sorry, I was looking at something else. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was talking about the level factoring into your offense. We know that it's going to scale up your magic damage, and it's going to exponentially scale up your physical damage. Does level play into your character defense on the receiving damage end?
I believe it increases Sanima, which I think just does... I actually don't know how exactly it works. So Sanima does HP regen. I don't think there's a natural defense stat, but I actually don't know too much about how defense works in this game, because one of the great things about Worlds Collide is that, in my opinion, offense is key. You don't need to worry about how much damage you're taking if you just kill them before they can hit you.
That's right. Your best defense is a good offense. Now, Hefe's run back in here into the South Figueroa basement. He's completing Celeste's prisoner check, and he's found Go-Go. Gogo's going to open up the Zone Eater Cave, which is one of most racers' least favorite places due to those bridge trolls that will infinitely knock you off of those bridges. But it does open up another another possible location for him to go, although I don't know why he would at this point. But Gogo does have a unique ability to mimic all of those elemental shield breakings that for the elemental shields that he's bought, as well as rods and his super balls if he chooses to go rebuy them.
Yeah, I think that would be the only reason I could see Hefe picking up Gogo here. Like we said before, picking up characters is just going to make bosses stronger, but it's not going to matter for really kind of any checks, since Espers don't give you any magic. I would imagine maybe he picked them up just to be able to break, to be able to mimic that the shield and super balls to help take these dragons out. But if not, it really picking up Gogo or any character is just going to make your life harder. Now, I will say that what they're running here, this draft, is atypical. The nice thing about the draft is there's so many different combinations. I believe there are 12 different categories, and each one has 4 different options, and you're only drafting 3 categories each total. So no two draft flag sets are alike. The combinations are really crazy, and it means that while we might be sitting here talking about how picking up characters don't matter, these runners, they're trying to figure this out on the fly. You know, this is not the same kind of flag set they're running over and over again. This is completely new to them, and they got to adapt new strategies. You know, Vero could be, if you've seen some of this, and you're wondering if the routing might not be optimal, because it's hard what they're doing. This is an extremely hard skill to be able to figure all this out as you go.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of my favorite things about Worlds Collide. It adds a new twist on a classic Nintendo RPG, randomizing the abilities, characters, and so much more every seed. It makes every seed a unique challenge to solve the puzzle. And in this case, they're doing it on the fly because they have no experience running this exact flag set. Looks like Squack has taken on his first dragon here, and he's found the dirt dragon at the top of Narsh Mountain. I noted that he did save beforehand, so even though he didn't get quaked, if it doesn't go his way, he can reset and try again.
Yeah, but he also is doing something interesting here. You're seeing it a second time. He is using the Doom Dragon Rage. Doom Dragon is not one of 8 dragons. He is a regular enemy. But his Rage has 50% chance of using End Cross, which will do a very rare status effect that will freeze the enemy. It is something you've seen the Ice Dragon do against runners. You'll see Tier 2 and Kefka do it. It's something that this is, I believe, the only way that the player can use and can freeze enemies. But an enemy is frozen for like a minute or 2 as long as you don't hit him with any fire attacks. And you're seeing right here, the Dirt Dragon is doing no offense at all the squawks. It is maybe not the fastest strategy, but it is very effective in shutting down these extremely powerful dragons.
That's just another case of vanilla game knowledge being rewarded in Worlds Collide. We started with 100 rages, and I didn't see too many people go through it. We did see Jex go in early and look at some of his rages, but being on the alert for those niche abilities like Doom Dragon's End Cross allowed Squack to take out that dragon with relatively no problem. And let's see if he leans on that throughout the dragon hunt here, because as far as I know, no enemy in the game, to include Final Kefka, is immune from that End-Crossed freeze. Is that right?
I believe so. It's definitely something that doesn't come up very often. One thing I would suggest to some of our newer runners is to check out the wiki that you can find at ff6wc.com. We have a very good rage guide there that is actually ordered in, obviously somewhat subjective, ordered in tier power level, and Doom Dragon is very much near the top, and so kind of just having that up as you play and spot checking some of those rages can really help a lot. There are a lot of rages in the game. None of us have them all memorized, but Doom Dragon, because it's so unique and so powerful, is something that most runners keep in mind, and when looking through a rage list, they'll normally jump out at them.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. If you're newer to Worlds Collide, do check out the website. It's got a direct link to the wiki, and that wiki is chock full of guides. As a newer runner myself, I'll tell you that my first few seeds, I had probably 8 different windows open with all the different guides so that anything I needed was available to me. There's a map that shows you where every single check is, because it had been over 10 years since I played the vanilla game and I couldn't remember where towns and encounters were. There's a rage guide, like Seto mentioned. There are all sorts of walkthroughs, guides, and strategies for how to complete this race. So go ahead and check it out. You can get there at www.ff6wc.com, and you'll see a link to both the Discord and the wiki right there. Go explore and get into your own seed yourself.
Yeah, we have an amazing community, and we mentioned all the guides in the wiki. Almost any information you can find is there, and if there's information you can't find, or maybe you're getting really into speed running and you want to start talking about different strategies, join our Discord. You can also find that at ff6wc.com. We have a very active and friendly and knowledgeable community. And everyone I know who's in it raves about how great it is. So we're a friendly bunch. If this interests you, check it out. Feel free to ask any questions. No matter what time of day or night, people will respond probably very quickly and answer any questions you have.
Yeah, just taking a quick power check. Jex has Cyan up to level 42 already. So we're about
crazy.
An hour in, and he is going to start not having very much trouble with dragons as he quickly approaches their level. This could be that moment when Jex takes hold and slingshots forward. Although Setzer is only 29, so there's a big divergence with that experience egg. But having that level 42 character should really help him as he takes on this next dragon.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting with most of our runners, because Squawks also has a level 35 Cyan, whereas Hefe, who got to an early start, you really saw the struggles with those two dragons kind of catch up to him, because Jek looks like he's about to grab his third dragon, and I have to double check levels, but I believe Jek is now in a much greater spot than Hefe is. So really goes to show how quickly these races can churn, and how sometimes different strategies can result in a different pacing, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, but really the only thing that matters in the end is where you end up.
Yeah, interesting to note on those relative positions is that Hefe's progression scaling is higher than Jex's. So all of Hefe's bosses are currently 6 levels higher than Jex's the next time they attempt a boss, although it will be affected after these next dragon kills, because Hefe is also headed to face a dragon at the ancient castle.
That's right. And to kind of recap, because I know we've had a bunch of runners kind of join as I watch the chat, I see some new names pop up. This is a draft race, and the way that kind of works is 2 of our runners, Jex and Hefe, went back and forth picking flags in a streamlined process. I believe there are 12 different categories, with most categories having 2 to 4 options, where you pick a category and an option, and then that category is locked. And so Jex, for instance, if I bring it up, he picked dragons. He picked that 8 dragons were required, and therefore no other picks could happen that result in dragons. So Hefe counterpicked by removing all other requirements, and that's how we have this 8 dragon only thing. I assume Hefe saw the 8 dragons and said that's going to take a while and be a pain. Well, let me counteract it by making the rest of the requirements not an issue. You can do 1 block, or 1 veto of someone's picks, but it is back and forth for 4 picks, so 8 picks total, as you're picking different categories, and that results in a very customizable flag set where each flag set is very different than other flag sets you probably played. And that's why we're seeing a lot of kind of weirdness here, because some of these categories can have some pretty weird options, such as these 8 dragons.
Yeah, so interesting to just, as you highlight the uniqueness of this flag set in the draft mode, any new racers can go to ff6wc.com and you can make your own completely custom seed with any flags you want. You can customize abilities, scaling, enemies, where they appear, whether or not they're shuffled or randomized. It's very, very customizable and tunable so that you can get your own preferred seed. And we see a lot of Worlds Collide players that aren't necessarily racers just go and create their own experience on the website with a unique seed and unique objectives to complete in order to attempt the final boss.
To answer a question in chat real quick, Hash Malone, who is protesting reading at the moment, No, the only KT requirements are the dragons. The recap real quick, Jexvrok had drafted 8 required dragons as his first pick, and Hefe, for his first pick, removed all other requirements. So the only KT requirements, both for the skip and for regular, is getting all 8 dragons. Not that the skip matters too much when you're getting all the dragons anyway, but that is the only requirement to go fight Kefka, is killing the 8 dragons.
And we see Squack take down that Mount Zozo dragon, and he is rewarded with that offering. So that's going to unlock the ability to do that Valiant Knife offering play that we talked about earlier. It also unlocks, once Jex takes out that dragon, the ability to do Stray Cat offering Illumina for the possibility of that Stray Cat Scratch doing massive damage with the Illumina, followed by up to 4 Pearl procs if he's lucky enough.
Yeah, sorry, I am checking, because I know that Hefe and Squawk both picked up the Valiant Knife. I'm checking to see if Jex also picked up that Valiant Knife, and he did. All 3 of our runners have that Valiant Knife. So I'm wondering, if you're Hefe and you eventually kill that blue dragon, how upset are you that you missed out on that earlier? Because that is going to be a huge power increase to all 3 of our runners, especially Jex and Squawk, who have been rocking that experience egg and hopefully been getting lots and lots of HP on their Saiyans.
Yeah, and that was definitely their objective and hope when putting that experience egg onto Cyan, and we'll see which way they go with it, because Stray Cat for Jex with an Illumina is extremely powerful, but it looks like Gao is no longer in his party, so it's definitely going to be Cyan getting that offering Valiant Knife combo, and looking to do a lot of damage as he gets damaged.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, the whole point with the offering is that it does more damage the higher HP you have, and the difference between your current HP and your max HP. Which means it is a very risky strategy, because it means your character has to be low HP. The lower, the more damage, and so it ends up being a risky strategy. And without a lot of magic, without being able to cast Life 3 or other kind of protective magic, you're really a little more limited. One thing we haven't mentioned with the lack of magic is healing. It hasn't come up too much yet, but come that final Kefka battle, I'm wondering how much that's going to feel like it's hurting our runners.
Yeah, not only healing, but also how to solve that final battle. So as our racers are progressing through this game, no matter what seed they're working on, they're going to be thinking about final Kefka, and there's some challenges to that. One of them is Calmness Protection. On Tier 3 of final Kefka, the enemy that we refer to as Sleep, his death counter is going to be Calmness. So 1, sometimes 2 attacks of it will instantly kill a player. So they're looking for protection from that. The most common protection is going to be the Golem and Fenrir Espers, but there are some other ways to do that, including Life 3, which is going to be very hard to find without spells on Espers, and also Vanish through either the Phantom Esper or the Vanish spell. So with limited Calmness Protection, how does that change your thinking for Final Kefka?
So I think that's actually kind of interesting. Something I didn't really consider until you started talking about it, which is we mentioned that checks don't matter here. You only need dragons to get the Kefka's Tower, and every check you get is increasing every other boss's HP and all their stats. So they're increasing their levels. So there should be no reason to take any checks. However, if you're on the hunt for Calmness Protection and there's no magic, the most common way is going to be that Fenrir or that Golem Esper. So is it worth the time to do these checks? Is it worth the time to have other enemies be more powerful, or do you just risk Calmness? It can only kill 2 people, and most likely going to kill 1, assuming you don't naturally evade it. If you feel like your party is strong enough, is that, that is a viable strategy. It is obviously higher risk because you're looking at a 10 to 15 minute time loss if you wipe, but you're also going to take a huge time loss with all those stronger bosses in KT.
Yeah, one of the lesser used Calmness Protections with a character with Throw is using a special scheme to get a Mirage status for ultra high evade. That will provide Calmness Protection if you're able to find that scheme.
But only for one character, just for the thrower. You cannot use that on other characters in your party, sadly.
Yeah, some other things our runners might rely on is the high evade of the Illumina for whoever's wearing that. And we'll see what else. It'll be really interesting because everyone seems to be very focused on the 8 dragon requirement to get to Final Kefka, but maybe not focusing yet on the Final Kefka battle like they normally would in a standard race.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I'm very curious about the comms protection and the routing with it. I think that is a cool decision, and that's why I personally play this game, is these tough decisions that Worlds Collide requires you to constantly be juggling a lot of sometimes good, sometimes bad choices, and really trying to figure out what the most optimal strategy is. And sometimes you don't know until it happens. And I'd be kind of curious to see how this pans out for our runners. And if there's no comms protection, it might just come down to the luck of the draw, what happens with everyone.
Yeah, it looks like Hefe's found that Doom Dragon Rage on Gao, so he's going to be using that strategy to take out the Skull Dragon here. Looks like he's faring much better.
Yeah, and I think at this point, even with his earlier losses, Hefe's offense now has finally caught up, and these dragons, while they might be a little bit longer fights, should not be too powerful. Unfortunately, Jack is also going to pick up his 5th dragon here, leaving, I believe, just the Ice Dragon spot for him, and then the 2 in KT, if I'm remembering that right, or maybe Fanatics Tower. Maybe Fanatics Tower is one he hasn't fought yet.
He initially wiped on Fanatics Tower, so he does know that Ice Dragon is inside FT, and that will enable him to prepare for it with elemental protection or maybe some fire rods or fire shield breaking.
Yeah, and that's going to be maybe how this race still stays close. That Fanatics Tower is going to be long, and more importantly, it's still the same problem we mentioned before, which is there's not a lot of magic at the moment because Espers do not teach magic in this seed. And you can't use your fight or your abilities in Fanatics Tower. So Jex's offense is very limited for the tower. Hefe only got by with a whole bunch of Super Balls. So this might be a way for Hefe to catch up. Yeah, he has to climb Mount Zozo again and climb Narsh again. But that trek up the Fanatics Tower is also going to be very lengthy as well. So this is still a very tight race between these two runners.
Yeah. With Espers not providing any magic at all, the only magic access that our runners are going to have are items that teach spells, like those elemental shields, or natural magic users. And I haven't noticed any natural magic on any of our characters, but if you were in this situation, thinking about what we've just been talking about, would you consider a natural magic character?
I might, I would have to check with, give me one second, I'll tell you, whether or not, do you happen to know if natural magic is, it is not randomized, okay. No, actually, natural magic's turned off here. There is no natural magic at all. If I'm looking at this slide set.
Yeah,
right.
I see that as well. Natural magic is not in this seed, so that's why we haven't seen it on any characters, so that is not going to be a factor today. They are not doing this fight with magic.
Yeah, and Jack's using the not so well known exit out of Phoenix Cave. I guess he doesn't have any warp stones, but you can go to the end and use a special exit to escape without taking the check. Very smart on his part, deciding not to take that check and to not increase scaling at all. And now he is going for Bum Rush. I didn't even know there was a user with Blitz, but it must have been Cyan, I assume, and that's why he put the egg on him? Where's Blitz?
Yeah, as I'm looking at the flag set, Natural Sword Tech becomes Blitz, so he's been juicing up Cyan for Bum Rush. And I'm guessing he's going to go for a coffee break now, because this cutscene with Duncan is pretty lengthy. Have a look at it.
It is, I think, a little over a minute is what people have put it at. No, Cyan has throw, actually, so... Celeste has Blitz. That's what... Okay, Celeste has Blitz, and that's why Jack put the Experience Egg on her. I noticed that he took it off Cyan at one point and put it on Celeste, and that was why, because he was aiming for Bum Rush, where you have to be level 42 to get it. Something you don't see a lot. You have to be a high level, and most of the time you're not 42 before KT, and it is a lengthy cutscene, but you get a very strong ability in Churn.
Okay, good catch on that flag set. I may have downloaded the wrong notepad file because my commands are different. but we do confirm have Blitz on Celeste.
Yeah, and I think this is a smart move by Jek without having calmness protection. You have sets. You have Cyan with your Valiant Knife. You have Egder with your Lumina, and now you have Celeste with Bum Rush. So even if calmness hits, say Cyan, you still have plenty of very solid offense to make short work of Kefka. If you can't protect calmness, at least make all 4 characters equally invaluable, so it doesn't matter who you lose.
Yeah, and looks like Celeste's magic power is right around 60 or just below it. And Bum Rush, even though it's a Blitz and it's on that physical musclehead character, Sabin, it is powered by magic power. So Celeste having Blitz and unlocking that Bum Rush ability is going to make her do a lot of damage. I anticipate we see some quad 9s out of Bum Rush Celeste in the not too distant future.
That's a great call. One thing that I didn't mention, except at the beginning when we were going through the flags, is that I forget who drafted it. I'll tell you in 1 second. It was Hefe drafted stats being true chaos, which means that stats could be anywhere from 40% of vanilla to 200%. And that's why you're seeing such a high magic on Celeste, 60 being a very high number. That's because of another flag drafted in this race.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it might be about 58, and that's with items equipped. But if you throw some earrings on there, you can get up to a 50% bonus on that. So now Celeste is effectively in the 80s range for that effective magic after equipment and relics with double earrings.
Yeah, and that's really, really gonna do a lot, especially to these remaining dragons. The downside of Bum Rush is that it's single target and it's random who it targets, but that doesn't matter for these dragons. There's always only one dragon, so you're always going to hit it for a lot of damage. And oh man, like Jek is just tearing through these. You have, Setzer throwing for 4k. He's your weakest of the 4. You have, Bum Rush. You have Illumina Atma weapon, including a powerful Atma weapon from the back row still. And then you have Cyan doing the Valiant Knife. When he gets HP down lower. Jek is good on offense for probably the rest of the scene.
And he's hit that level 50 mark, so his power is just going to keep getting stronger and stronger, especially with those physical sword strikes from Edgar with that Illumina Atma weapon combo. Now, Atma weapon is going to be the opposite of the Valiant Knife, where somewhat opposite, where you're going to do full damage at 100% HP, and as your HP percentage dips down, the percentage of damage from the Atma weapon will likewise dip down. So he's going to want to keep Edgar topped off, but the extra defensive stats provided by the Illumina, as well as back rowing him for half physical damage, will help with that.
The other thing too with the Illumina is that level directly goes into the damage formula for for the Atma weapon. The level goes directly into the damage formula. So while leveling up always will give you increased battle power and therefore increase your attacks, it's even more so with Atma weapon. And so therefore every level he gets is just going to make Edgar swing for harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, we do see Jex taking that optional Tritalk boss right after that Ice Dragon spot at the top of Narsh Mountain. So I'm wondering if he's now starting to plan out his calmness protection now that he's taken down the 6 dragons that are outside KT. How many checks do you think you would want to go for? Looking for this a Golem or Fenrir or possibly a Phantom Esper?
Yeah, I imagine that's what he's trying to do. He's smartly knowing this can't be a character, so he's betting on it being a useful Esper. And there are 4 Espers that can give him some sort of utility for calmness protection. Zone Seek, of course, is not one of them. Like I said, if I was Jex, it would not be worth the risk of powering everything up and spending the time fighting another boss. You have 4 very good characters. Even if you get double calmness, you're still going to be able to beat Kefka without any worries. So I'm kind of curious some of our runner thought process. I can't wait to interview them. It's always fun to talk about different strategies afterwards. Even after the winner's declared, I encourage everyone to stick around. You're going to get some great insights from all 3 of our runners afterwards. We'll hopefully be able to interview each and every one. So it's always a good time. The race doesn't end just when someone crosses the finish line. There's plenty more to see afterwards.
Absolutely, and shout out to our race tracker Ceiling Cat for keeping everything up to date. Just use that tracker to verify that none of our racers have found any espers with calmness protection on them yet. So that is still going to come into play, although with the high power level we're seeing out of these characters, 2 may be enough, even in the worst case scenario for calmness. Looks like Jex found a Yeti at the Kalingan Inn, and he did choose to pick him up. I don't anticipate he'll be trekking all the way back up to the top of Narsh Mountain to complete Umaro's Cave, though.
Yeah, I mean, you need someone to pilot the airship, right? One thing to keep in mind, too, with picking up more characters, something that our runners probably aren't thinking too much of, but you do have to worry a little bit about party composition in the tower. If you ran in there with just 4, it means that 2 parties are going to be sitting there with only 1 person, which means that they have to have a Moogle Charm, and it doesn't give them a lot of options if they get hit with, say, a Doom or something like that. So picking up another character could be good. At the very least, you have a Moogle Charm user. You know, it's not a bad choice overall.
Yeah, it's always tragic when you see a solo party member take on a boss at the statue position in Kefka's Tower, and they come out and get hit with something like Delta Hit, which will petrify them and instantly wipe the party. You hate to see it. So look for at least 6 characters on every runner to protect from that.
Yeah, that's something we haven't talked about is kind of how Kefka's Tower works. Our runners have to split their party into 3 distinct parties and walk through the dungeon with them. In this case, it's a little bit different as well because 2 dragons also exist. They are on paths 2 and 3 there. Parties 2 and Party 3 will fight a dragon, and they have to fight those dragons. We can see different strategies. We might see a runner put everyone in one party, kill a dragon, warp out, and then do it again. But it does mean you have to now split your party up. And some bosses that maybe aren't that bad with all 4 people there, some become very annoying or scary with only 1 person. If you run into a goddess with a party of 1 or 1 viable person, that's gonna be rough. But even enemies you wouldn't think of, such as tentacles, can be a very long boss fight when you only have 1 damage dealer.
Absolutely. I've personally been terrorized by the tentacles, having only a Setzer with health on him to combat those 4 tentacles. And it is a long and painful battle watching that. Some other things that can happen is you can have a random ability, like you're relying on Valiant Knife Offering, and you encounter a multi-part boss, something like Rexsoul, where you absolutely do not want to take out those accompanying minions with Rexsoul, but you have no ability to target your character's high damage ability, and that's just one of the things that can come and bite you in the randomizer.
Yeah, like I mentioned at the very beginning, there is no silver bullet for Worlds Collide. Even the best setups, such as this Valiant Knight Offering, there are bosses that will just laugh in his face. Illumina is one of the best swords in the game, but it can't really do much to Magic Master, as an example. So there is no right answer to be able to take down every boss in the game. So very well it could be that you run into a boss that isn't that bad, but it's just the wrong matchup for your character. One thing I like to do is try to remember which characters can equip which good stuff. If I know multiple people can equip a Valiant Knife, it might be worth in Kefka's Tower to swap that around and put it on someone who wasn't using it before, just to have them get through a boss that they wouldn't be able to get through otherwise.
Yeah, so we see Jex going in with Edgar and Gao on his team, and even though he dumped Gao earlier, Gao is already level 34, so he is no slump. Gao is well leveled to be able to contribute in Kefka's Tower, and Jex has both the powerful Stray Cat and Doom Dragon Rages for him, so a lot of good utility there. Maybe he's not worried about Common's protection because he's got Gao as a backup 5th character in a very good position to contribute to Final Kefka.
Yeah, it's something you don't see very often. A good 5th character. Most of the time, you normally don't have a good 4th character. If you're lucky, your 4th character can do a little bit of healing, be an item mule. Having so many riches that Gao is still doing a good amount of damage really kind of is a nice insurance plan for a columnist. I agree. That's some good insight.
Okay, it looks like Hefe is fighting a monster in a box in a cave, looking for hopefully some Minerva drops from these pugs. Let's see if it happens. Unfortunately, it didn't. But he is in Umaro's cave and gonna check out the reward there. Squack is going for the Opera House Dragon, looking for his 4th. But Hefe's got 6. Let's see how much longer he stays in the overworld looking for additional items or bosses and espers to help prepare him for the final battle.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm going to switch audio over to Jack now. I think since he is in the tower, we're going to hear some nice KT music. Oops. Sorry, give me 1 second if you want to continue.
Yeah, KT music is pretty good. I like it's very foreboding and kind of epic for the final dungeon, which is always nice. He also split his party going into KT, as we mentioned. He did not opt to take the big 4 characters and take on a boss and dragon and warp out and leave again. He thinks his characters are strong enough to take down these unskilled dragons by themselves, and he's probably right, especially with Celeste about to pump out a quad 9 bum rush right here. Watch your eyes if you are sensitive to flashing, because that bum rush is a doozy.
Yeah, we have options to diminish some of these flashes, bum rush being the big one, but the boss flash as well and the save point flash. I believe now is a separate option. It used to get baked into the seed, but I think it's now since been pulled out as an optional thing that runners can add for anyone who might be sensitive to those kind of lights.
That's a good ad there, and personally, I just there's a couple different settings for that option. You can reduce or just completely remove those flashes. I like the reduce option, so it's not quite so bad. And Hefe is going to be our second racer into Kefka's Tower here as he forms his party. Be interesting to see if he goes for the big 4 in one party, which it looks like he might be doing. And he's going to attack that first boss at the Inferno spot and then go on and attack a dragon, look for him to warp out afterwards and move that party over to another lane and take the full force of his team at another dragon.
Yeah, and we can see in chat that there's a lot of discussion of what the most optimal routing is for killing these 2 dragons. It's something you don't see very often since dragons are normally optional with most runs, or it's not an 8 dragon requirement. So runners aren't used to trying to figure out the most optimal way to go through the tower and kill these dragons. With Hefe's, routing, I think it's smart to put everyone in one party to begin with to take out dragon number 3, because you have to fight a boss beforehand anyway, and your offense is not quite as strong as Jex, where I think Jex splitting his party out to the more traditional setup of having people spread out a bit more ends up being fine, because even with 2 he can easily take out pretty much any dragon that's coming their way.
Yeah, this just goes to the there's no one solution to any seed, and we see multiple runners having success with multiple strategies. Even though he's already in Kefka's Tower, once Hefe warps out, he will have the option to go to the statue spot. So what I think he's going to be doing is taking that third lane dragon, killing this boss. Unfortunately, it's a really long one in the Piranha fight. But taking out that boss, taking out that dragon, warping out, moving all 4 characters over to the other dragon, taking that out, and then warping out and using that statue skip to prevent having to walk that 4 or 5 minute walk through Kefka's Tower, and just taking all of his divided up characters onto those final boss fights.
Yeah, and regardless, you want to take advantage of the skip. Jack is using here in order to remove about probably a minute and a half or 2 minutes worth of walking with his last party and doing the 2-ton weights and everything. But it might be important to keep that skip in your back pocket. You can use skip 1 time to go to the statues. So if he finds a boss here that he can't take, he's gonna have to warp out and do the entire tower over the long way. Whereas since you're almost all the way through the tower anyway with parties 2 and 3, it might have been worth it to continue on and keep that in your back pocket as a safety in case you run into something like a Magi Master that you can't take out on one of the paths, because then you can kill all the other bosses, put everyone warp out, and statue skip put everyone in the party that has the route with the Magi Master as an example. A lot of different ways to approach this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's optimal, but I think it's very interesting to consider when you enter Kefka's Tower at the normal spot with your entire party intact. If you just continue on, you can blow through that center lane and take out 2 bosses with the full strength of your 4 strongest characters, and then leave and warp out and then divide those strong characters in half for the other 2 lanes. It's something that's available with the skip, and the skip is not always available to runners, so I don't think it's been fully explored. But this is certainly a unique situation when both dragons must be taken out in order to unlock the final battle.
We definitely saw that in the Battle Royale. There was a lot more experimentation with taking out bosses in KT with the skip. And also doing KT early and a few other things that was not the standard, 1-1-2 party setup that maybe some veterans are used to. But I think this flag set is really kind of pushing that and really maybe getting some people's the gears in their head going of how do you approach routing with this. And I think you're going to see all 3 runners do it differently. And yeah, we're seeing Hefe putting everyone in the middle path, going to take that out and then do the skip like you kind of said. I don't really have an answer. I really have to sit there and think on it to figure out what is the best route, because it seems a little 6 of one, half dozen another.
Yeah, and Jex is up there. He's divided his party out now to just Cyan and Umaro, and he's encountered the Stooges, which is a very scary boss to find on this party. When all 3 Stooges are alive, thankfully they're not anymore, they can do that delta hit and petrify Cyan, and if Cyan gets petrified with the uncontrollable Yeti, there's no way to undo that, and so it becomes a 1-on-3 fight. Thankfully, as I mentioned, he was able to take down some of those Stooges, so that petrify is off the table. He's just got 1 more to go, and then he's past the scary fight to have Umaro involved in.
Yeah, a lot of fights in the tower are scary with Umaro. In this fight, it's just because he's unreliable. But if you get something like Welk or something like that, where he is, attacking non-discriminatory, then he can be, a liability in some cases. But with only 6 characters, you have to put him with one person somewhere, right? Luckily, it ended up working in his favor.
Yeah, unfortunately, that lovable Yeti is fairly unreliable. In my last race, I had him, and wouldn't you know it, we found Chatternook. And Chatternook is one of those bosses that you don't want to attack for certain phases of the fight, and Umaro would not listen. He just kept on attacking. And my chat was screaming, kill him, kill your own character, just to prevent all those counterattacks.
Yeah, I mean, we all have stories of the Yeti being the troll that we all know him as. There's a reason why he is one of the least beloved characters in the Worlds Collide community. No, I don't. Even people who say they love the Yeti are, in my opinion, trying to be ironic. He is not a fun time.
Yeah, it looks like Jex is prepping to possibly break a shield, but he is able to take down Ifrit ahead of time. So this Ifrit and Shiva battle is another one that's not too difficult, but if you're not prepared for it, it can be incredibly painful, because each of those 2 bosses are vulnerable to only one element. And if you don't have that available and no non-elemental damage available, you could be stuck there.
Yeah, with the levels in offense he has, they aren't as scary, but if you're a little bit lower, you might find that you don't have as many options for it. Even in KT, we run into that. Tritok, as an example, can only be hurt via fire and has a lot of high defense, and therefore if you don't damage ignoring attacks or fire, you might feel walled by him. There's a lot of bosses that are surprisingly difficult if you run into the tower with the wrong situation.
Yep, Jex has now encountered Uncle Alti here with his friend Chupon, so one last battle for this party, and then they'll be moving on. Squack has dipped into the tower to take out these 2 dragons, even though he hasn't completely cleared the world dragons yet. Looking to probably get some high-tier item rewards from these dragons and maybe boost his overworld performance that way.
Yeah, though he did just kill one and his dragon counter didn't go up, so we know he's at least 4. I don't think he killed all of them, but to be honest, I wasn't looking fully at his screen. So if we can get confirmation from our tracker that it is at 3, because I'm pretty sure it should have gone before there. Oh yeah, because none of our dragon counters are actually incremented. Because Jex and Hefe are still at 6 out of 8. So I apologize. We'll try to figure out in a minute what everyone's count is, but it could be that Squawks is in go mode, as far as we know.
Okay, he certainly seems to be making progress through the tower, and that could very well be the case. Now, Jex is going to be the first one to the switches here, it looks like. But Hefe is hot on his tails approaching the statue locations, so this could come down to the wire. Anything can happen in the final Kefka battle. Magic in Tier 2 is going to be particularly brutal without Mute available, so it'll be a real exciting finish, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I just got word from our tracker. They actually left 10 minutes ago. So yes, the numbers are not updated. I've updated Jex and Hefe, and I'm putting Squawk at 7. But if anyone in chat has confirmation of whether he actually is at 7 or not, let me know. But our apologies for not having the most updated information there.
Okay, we see Hefe taking on that Guardian spot, and he's going to do that Ifrit and Shiva battle. Noted that he did not go south and hit that additional switch, so hopefully he remembers to do that after this battle is over.
Ooh, that's a good call.
And that is something that I struggled with my first few runs in KT. It's just you want to progress forward. You're so like tunnel vision on progressing through the tunnel, you forget you have to walk backwards. Unless he's taken this whole party out and going to warp out, and he's aware of that, after he does the center path, he could be doing that method I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and one thing to point out on Hefe's screen, there's a lot of very niche knowledge in Will's Clyde, but one is that Ifrit, despite being fire elemental, is not weak to water. Same with Flame Eater. So those water edges were doing 0. Something that newer runners should kind of be keep an eye out for, because it makes no sense. You would think that he would be weak to water, but alas, he is not. And yeah, it looks like he might have forgotten to hit those switches, which he will realize in a second when he gets to the top here and can't continue anymore.
Looks like he does have his whole main party going this center path, so he could possibly be warping out, and then he'll split them up down the right and left paths. I love that play personally, if that's what he's doing, because it means that he's going to finish these center lane bosses where it's a double boss path much faster than someone who has their max damage characters split up, and then he's going to be able to maximize concentrating 2 and 2 on the left and right paths.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying it earlier, or at least I was raving about how unique this KT routing is. Normally there's not this many options of what the most optimal route is. You normally don't have to skip, you're not trying to kill both dragons, you don't have all this offense. So I think this is really flexing some more creative muscles in our runners' brains of trying to figure out where to go. I think Jex had the right of it though. I wasn't timing everyone's entrance in the KT, but it seems like the KT gap between him and Hefe definitely increased. It looks like he got through it a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have the advantage of not having to warp out to move the party, and with a high offense on his main team, he was able to split them up, and they could each support their own lanes. And oh no, unfortunately, that switch did come back to bite him, and so he had to make the run back. I know that run very well. I'm sorry, Hefe.
Yeah, if you forget it, you have to go back down that conveyor belt and then walk all the way back around. It's not a huge time loss, but it's probably about 45 seconds. He looks like he might be. He still has a skip, so it looks like he's peeking. He saw the Stooges. He's probably gonna check the other path here, would be my guess, or he's only checking one path. But definitely smart to be able to scout them, see what you have, and then maybe structure your party in the most efficient way to take that boss out.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, that Three Stooges fight is going to be very scary initially. They have the Delta hit, but also that top Stooge can cast Life 2 on any damage and on any killed other Stooges and completely bring them back to full health. So it's a tough fight and not one you want Umaro in, and that is what we see him doing, putting Umaro on the other path, because you need targeted damage against the Three Stooges.
Meanwhile, let's move on to the final battle. Jek is almost on tier 1 here. One thing I noticed that I think is pretty cool is he's using Celeste's Blitz, the Mantra ability, one that you don't see too often. It does a little bit of healing and, more importantly, heals every stats effect. But our runners have no healing outside of items, and so if they don't have a lot of X potions and elixirs, they're going to feel it. So Jek's pulling out a lesser-known Blitz. I honestly don't even have that one memorized, but it's a good tool to have because it is pretty useful here to make sure your you're topped off and make sure nothing surprises you.
Great catch on that. Blitz mantra as healing. I contrast was mantra was one of the few that I did memorize in vanilla. It's RLRLXY, and I don't know why, but I remembered that without playing for 10 plus years.
You'll go to your grave knowing that.
Yeah, Jex is going to progress through Tier 1. He took them out in the correct order so that he didn't get the counter Quake or counter Shockwaves. Now he's moved on to Tier 2. Tier 2 is going to be a very scary tier, although his offense is going to tear through these 4 bosses pretty quickly. Normally you would want to take that machine-looking one and use some instant death spells. You'd want to mute the magic caster on the far left so that they can't throw any magic back at you. But today it's just raw power for Jex.
Yeah, that's something we didn't touch on too much. We were talking about the lack of combat protection without certain magic and stuff like that. But the other thing too is the lack of instant death and mute for Tier 1 and 2. Tier 1 has one part that can be killed with instant death. Tier 2, of course, as you just mentioned, tools can be killed with instant death, but magic in the back can be muted to take it out from the battle. But our runners don't have those options. There's a few non-magical instant death, but there's no... Siren's the only option they would have when it comes to mute, and they don't have it. So, despite his offense, this fight is still a little bit scary, or at the very least a little bit long, as tools and magic all have some pretty mean spells they can throw out occasionally.
Yeah, and we did see one of those mean spells. It's Muddle. It affected Edgar, meaning that he would target his own party. Thankfully for Jex, he only used Shock, which is the lesser of the two evils, having both that the Genji Glove, Illumina, Atma Weapon combo. He could have one-shot one of his own characters if he'd used the Fight command instead of Shock.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider too is with this battle is that, we have stuff like Muddle, but there's a whole bunch of other different status effects these parts can do. You can be zombied, you can be frozen, you can be turned into an imp, you can be muted. There's a whole bunch of different things that these guys do that are mean, and if they decide to do them in the right order at the right time, even the strongest parties could be crippled or even knocked out. I'm sure we've all had some pretty mean wipes to Tier 2. Tier 2 definitely can be one of the scariest when you don't have mutant instant death, no matter how strong you are.
Yeah, here comes another one of those nasty spells in Quarter. That's going to take away 75% of the character's current health, and with very limited healing options, that is a pretty bad one. Thankfully for Jex, it didn't hit Celeste, so that Mantra healing spell is still going to be fairly effective, and he has a couple healing items. And you see Celeste's Mantra go off. Mantra healing is fairly interesting in that it heals the other characters for the Blitzer's HP divided by how many people it's healing. So you see Celeste with almost 4,000 HP there, giving approximately 1,300 to each of the other 3 team members.
Yeah, and Jex wisely leaving Hit for the end here. Normally, we kill Hit second to last and Magic last, but he knew that Quarter was a possibility, and that would do a lot more damage to him than some measly hits that he had the HP to tank him. Normally, you don't kill Hit last in case he takes someone out, because Magic can't possibly kill someone, but he knew that wasn't a possibility. Changing up his order, very good decision making on his part.
Yeah, that's just one of the intricacies of this seed, in that you're coming into Kefka's Tower in the final battle at much higher levels than you normally would. I believe we've seen some characters in the 60s now, whereas normally you'd probably be somewhere around the mid-30s taking on this encounter. So that percentage-based damage of Quarter is going to hurt much harder on the higher-level characters.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about, and it just shows how complicated this fight is. I think a lot of people played the vanilla, and no offense to people who played it casually, but the vanilla game is not too terribly difficult, and I don't think people realize how complicated this fight is. Jex, of course, making it look like it's not, just powering right through. Tier 3 can be very mean when it gets low in HP, but it doesn't really matter when you're swinging for 20k a pop. No combat protection, but it takes out the weakest of his party members, being Setzer. So very lucky break for Jack, but not that mattered too much. I'm sure whoever calmed this killed, it would have been perfectly fine for him.
Yeah, personally, that resonates with me. I just have a couple of, maybe a handful of vanilla playthroughs under my belt a long time ago, and I took, I think, what was a very common route of you just power level your characters into them all doing quad 9 damage, just being in the 70s or 80s level range, and you're just overpowering Final Kefka. But that is not the case in Worlds Collide when you're in a race situation. You're trying to solve the puzzle of the final 4-tier battle. Um, what can you assemble? What solutions do you have for tier 2? What solutions do you have for tier 3 and commas protection to get in and out as fast as possible?
Yeah, like I've said a few times, there is no silver bullet here. And you really have to know, even if you have good offense, you really have to be aware of what's going on. Such as this Kefka here, he can start counterattacking when he gets below 32,000. If he gets below 10,000, he can counterattack with Ultima. He's already below 32,000, and if Jack doesn't hold off his offense, he's gonna, he can potentially run into an issue here. He's now waiting for Kefka to start charging his Goner, which he's doing now. And now that he's charging his Goner, there is no counterattacks. He knows he is safe to do as much damage as possible. And this fight should be over probably in a matter of seconds, I would imagine.
Yeah, with the amount of damage that Jex is popping out, there it is right there. GG Jex. He is our winner at just over 143. So congrats to Jex. We'll be looking to get him in for a racer interview in the near future as we see Hefe progress up to tier 2. Didn't have any issues with tier 1, and similar to Jex, he's just got that high power offense, a lot of damage coming out, and he's going to blow through these final bosses.
Yeah, I thought Squawks was maybe going to catch up with him slightly, but Hefe really pulled it out and, had the solid end to KT. But like you said, this should hopefully not be a problem. The only issue I'd be worried about is just some very bad calmness luck. The lack of protection means you can have up to 2 people, and that can be very scary. Excuse me, sorry, there was some double vision there with Jex's stream ending. But yeah, let's see if we can get Jex in here to give an interview.
Okay, as we wait on Jex, we see Squack going in. Chat is very pogger and will be for the rest of this battle, so that's good news. Let's see if he can catch up. Now, taking Umaro in, he is doing a truckload of damage. Oh, Yeti gets to hold the Illumina today, so that's a rare sight. But he did right about 10k damage with that first swing and proc, so he's not dead weight, he's just untargetable. But we'll see how it works out for him.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, he dropped Egner for Umaro earlier, so I'd be really curious to hear what his thought process was. But this is the most productive I've seen an endgame Umaro ever. I guess we can just get all of this experience from these dragons. Even the Berserker is still going to be doing. It's still going to be pulling his weight, it looks like.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Yeti.
Oh, and it looks like we are joined by Jexvrok. Jex, GG, man.
GG's.
Hey, great job, Jex. GG. So, this was a very unique seed. Why don't you walk us through your thought process of how to approach it? Because that's what we've been talking about this whole time. It's not the standard race. It's a unique requirement for the final battle, and some of the experience and scaling options were unique. So how did you crack this nut?
Early game, I wanted to keep my levels low and not keep my levels low. I wanted to keep my progression low because enemy level progression was based on the Espers, characters, and dragons that I have dealt with. So I wanted to keep that nice and low and try and take out the tower dragon first. That failed miserably, obviously. From there, I knew abilities were stronger, so having a good side thing to deal with the other dragons was gonna be pretty easy to deal with, because I ended up with Blitz, I had double throw, I ended up with 4 Thunder Shields by the end of the seed. So I had some access to magic, so I wasn't too worried about that. And the rages were also strong.
Yeah, you mentioned those rages. We saw you pick up an early stray cat, but didn't use much of it. What was the thought process there?
I abused Doom Dragon.
There were, you had a lot of toys. Everyone had a lot of toys to play with. Did you feel like you had maybe sometimes too many options you were trying to figure out, how they factored into your builds?
As I picked up, early game, it was, I was definitely set on finding earrings and some magic boosting equipment. I knew that was going to come into play, regardless. Magic power always comes into play. Aside from that, it was get levels, and the leveling was, there's going to be plenty of levels because of how the scaling was working. It was, what was it, party highest times points, 0.5.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it was going to be slow going in the beginning. I knew that much, but once the ball started to get rolling, the experience was going to be flying like crazy, especially after I found the EXP egg.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask you about your final Kefka preparation. We noticed that there was no commerce protection available. Did you consider that? Did you take extra checks, like maybe Tritalk, in the hopes of finding a Golem or Fenrir? Or did you just say, I have enough power to take down Kefka with 2, and I'm going to go?
That is why I did the Tritalk fight, and that is why I also did the freebie check for Setzer, which was the Yeti, in hopes that, it might have been an Esper. You never know. And ended up with no calmness protection, so I'm like, you know what? I have 6 characters. All of them are over level 30. Let's go. I had backup characters, even though one of them was a Yeti.
Yeah, and you certainly did tear through the tower. We noticed that you initially split up your party into those 3 lanes, and you just went for it. You didn't try to stack on one side with the power as high as it was. Bum Rush throwing out those quad 9s every time. Yeah, your party was pretty stacked. This seed did not lack for offense.
Now, when I went into KT initially, I did make the mistake of splitting my parties. I meant to stack one of the sides because I knew once I killed the 8 dragons, I would get the statue skip, and which, as you saw, after I killed the 8th dragon, I warped out, and then I went back in, did the statue skip. I meant to do, that's what I initially meant to do, and I totally forgot to do it, and then reformed a party for the 3 statues.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for your insight. Do you have any parting thoughts for chat or for the viewers before we let you go?
Yes. Anybody who is new to Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide and would like to know more, please join our Discord. We are happy to help you learn what this is all about. And again, GG's, thanks for having me.
Actually, Jack, I have a question for you since we have a tiny bit of time before Squawk's finished. So we don't talk about this a lot, but what was your strategy for drafting? Did you approach it any way? Did you react to any of FF6 at all?
The only draft that I reacted to was the no free progression. That's when I dropped my veto. Aside from that, it has been so long since I drafted that I just wanted to make things really interesting and kind of insane, which is why I did the no magic 8 dragons. I was debating doing the 6 dragons, but then I'm sitting there thinking it was a 50-50 toss-up for me. Because if I did the 8 dragons, we would have to do the tower dragon. If we didn't do the 8 dragons, well, KT is automatically accessible.
Yeah, Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish.
Oh, no, go right ahead.
I was going to compliment you on your picks because I honestly think this was a really, really fun interesting flag set. Like, I'm someone who doesn't like to experiment with flags, like very much like my standard race. But this entire time, I've been really enthralled with this different routing and strategy and stuff you guys had to do, and it was vastly different and challenging, but not in like a chaos way like Saturday's race was. So I think you and Hefe did a great job with your counter picking. I think picking no magic with dragons with that Fanatics Tower one was a really cool, interesting choice that posed a cool problem for people to solve.
Yeah, I mean, like these kinds of things. This is actually like my territory. This is where I thrive, where strange and weird things happen. When we go down to like what we did for SGDQ is, you know, the Ultras League or the new standard race flag set, I kind of fall behind because I don't have that rhythm, because I do these strange things so often to learn strategies.
Yeah, for anyone newer to the community, Jexvrok runs something called Jexy's Mad Dog Lab, where he creates these chaotic, interesting, weird seeds, and it's just another example of how customizable Worlds Collide is, and anybody can go onto the website FF6WC.com and create your own unique, crazy seed.
Absolutely.
And real quick, we have a finish by Squawks. He has not checked into the race room, so we don't have a final time, but it's roughly a 1:53, it looks like. We'll try to get a time in a little bit. But GG to Squawks. And Jex, anything else more to add or any other thoughts?
That will be it. Like I said, GG's. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for running.
Yeah, you did a great job. GG again.
And we did miss it, but during the interview, but GG to Hefe coming in second place with a 147.49. Shout out to all of our runners, Jexvrok, Hefe, and SquackMcquack. They were all within 10 minutes for this crazy seed. That just goes to show you like how skilled our runners are. We threw this crazy, never before seen challenge at them, and they all solved the puzzle within 10 minutes of each other. I'm impressed.
Yeah, and a small mention for how do you say his name? Xenobayan, who also was in this race, but unfortunately had to bail out due to some technical difficulties. He was not being restreamed, but he was also racing, so better luck next time, man. Hope everything gets settled.
Okay, is Squack available for a racer interview? I thought I saw him pop in, but I don't see him now.
Yeah, let me see. We'll see if he is available for a quick interview. But while we're waiting, you know, we'll plug it again. If this interests you, check out ff6wc.com. You know, we're a small but very active community. We have these races regularly on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. and Saturday nights at 9 p.m., I believe, both Eastern Time. And looks like we might have Squawks. Let me see if I can move him in here real quick.
Okay, while Seto's taking care of that, also wanted to plug something we mentioned earlier, that's Ultros League. You can find information on the Ultros League challenge going on right now at ultrosleague.com, and it's not too late to join. New competitors to the Ultros League will be welcomed into the Tonic League with open arms, where you can compete with new runners and fight to climb that ladder through the seasons. And with that, welcome SquackMcquack. GG.
GG. I finally figured out how to win.
Yeah, that was a big challenge. We were commenting the whole race about what a unique seed this was, what an interesting challenge, how divergent it was from standard flag set. So what was your thought process when you first saw these flags? What was your approach to getting to Final Kefka and to solving this puzzle?
Well, it's actually really funny because I don't really play Chaos Seeds too much, or seeds that require such interesting ways of being the game. So I didn't really know what to do. Like, I'm a standard player. I'm an Ultros League player. That's why I kind of grind all the time. So I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. And I'm like, well, they're unscaled dragons, so I probably shouldn't do anything. And then I don't know when it was, but then I was like, wait, Doom Dragon uses N-Cross, and I can just freeze the dragons. And I was like, God. So then I was like, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I need a lock to go into Phoenix Cave. And then I'm like, and then I get into Zone Eater, and I'm like, wait, I don't need lock to go into the Phoenix Cave. I just need him to get the check. So I'm like losing all this time. I have lost all this time by not knowing the game enough. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just change my mind and go and see if I can do Phoenix Cave. And then I could. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm just going to kill all the dragons by using the Doom Dragon trick.
Yeah, good heads up play there. I, for one, did not know that you can enter the Phoenix Cave without lock, so I would have been continually searching. And we did see him at the bottom of the Fanatics Tower, so that means he would have been gated by Strago. I would have been character hunting forever. So heads up play by you there.
But did you guys? I know you guys are probably busy commentating the winners of the whole thing. But did you guys see that crazy Magicite that I threw out on tier 3? I got double Comnist, and I'm like, well, I have 2 of like my weakest characters, so like I may as well throw out a Magicite. So I throw out a Magicite, and it's Phoenix, and Cyan gets back up, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, we did
That's
notice
incredible.
that was some incredible luck, and that's of course one of the fun things about Worlds Collide. Sometimes is both good and sometimes less fun, bad luck that can happen, and that was a pretty clutch play getting that little proc there. So I think you would have been fine on tier 4 without it, but it definitely saved you a few minutes.
Well, yeah, thankfully Gao was able to survive 1 Havoc Wing slap, but I had Celeste. I would have had Celeste dead. I forgot to pick up Phoenix Downs, so I'm like, great, I forgot to pick up Phoenix Downs, so I have no way of reviving my team. So it was really, really close for me. I'm actually very proud of how I did, considering the fact that I didn't know, I would say 3 solid tricks for a seed like this. So I'm like, all right, I'm good. And I'm glad that I was able to start the battle with chat is very pogger. And I found my rename cards, and it was all for the chat. I did it all for you guys.
So I want to ask about
that's
that, or at least that reminds me of, you swapped to Egder at one point. So Chad is very Egder for a while, but then you swapped back to Umaro. So why did you ditch Egder?
So, I mean, I could have used Edgar. But when I thought about it, I had 2 people with throw. I really didn't need shock, and Umaro had the ability to wield the Illumina. He had a snow muffler. I figured, you know what, if I get a rage ring, I can basically cover all of his elemental defenses, like resistances, with a rage ring. So I'm really not worried. And then I had a gauntlet too, which really helps Umaro out. Umaro's vigor was pretty good too, from what I understand. I can't remember what his vigor stat was at, but it was pretty high, higher than Edgar. So I'm like, I don't want to go back and buy rename cards. I only bought 4 for this meme, so I'm gonna stick with the meme team. That was my thought process.
All right, interesting play there. And to your credit, I watched Umaro's first swing. He hit 10K, including the swing and the proc on that first swing in Final Kefka, or at least on tier 1. So yeah, he's viable. He can do damage, and I like that you are thinking outside of the box, using some other strats.
Umaro is definitely very good if you're in a pinch for somebody who just needs to be straight melee. And if Umaro, the thing is Umaro can't wield a lot of weapons, so sometimes most of the time he's not good because you can't give him really good weapons. But when I saw that he could equip the Illumina, I'm like, oh, it's fine, he can just stay, because I can give him the gauntlet and Illumina. He doesn't really need a shield because the odds of him being able to wield a shield at all is low. So I'll just keep him with the snow muffler and hopefully find a rage ring down the line. That's all I was really hoping for. I knew I wasn't going to get Merton strats because of the Espers, so I felt like it was a good choice to keep him on, and I'm glad I did because he made it all the way to the end, and he was taking 1 damage from each hit from Kefka's tower, so he was taking no damage at all.
Did you ever consider the Colosseum? I know you're personally a huge fan of Yeti in the Dragon's Colosseum, but we didn't see any runners do that today.
Yeah, I didn't like what Hefe did to the Colosseum. He neutered it to the point where you'd have to be guessing the entire time, and it made me really sad. So I was like, you know what? I have Umaro. I could go to the Coliseum, but maybe I'll just stick with getting experience because I think the experience is what would hurt the most in this run. And I was right because a lot of shots hurt, and I would some fights I only survived with like 1 or 2 guys. But I do love the Coliseum.
Yeah, we do see that no rewards menu was visible in the Coliseum, so like you said, you would be guessing. Seto, what other questions do you have for our racer SquackMcquack?
I think that's about it. So I guess the last question is, would you do a draft like this again?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely helped. I mean, like I said, I'm just a straight like standard Ultros League kind of guy, and I've just been kind of grinding that. But I didn't realize. I mean, I think I had the knowledge from when I first started. I think it was talked about by somebody, but I remembered that Doom Dragon can freeze dragons. And when I was first facing the Dirt Dragon, I was like, oh, great. So this kind of seed really expands the knowledge, and really you're like, oh, okay, I didn't really know that was a thing. I'll have to remember that for next time. So I've learned a lot more about Rage, which is, I think, going to benefit me in the future for Ultros League runs as well.
Yeah, another great heads-up play there. I think we saw you catch up a little bit once you started using that tactic because not everybody caught on as quickly, and you didn't have nearly as many wipes on dragons as some of the other racers. But
I didn't have any.
Yeah, regardless, you should hold your head high. I was remarking before our interview started what a great race we had from first to third within 10 minutes of each other on such a crazy seed and such a long seed. That's just a tiny margin for error. So GG and great job on the race.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, GG again.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to take off. Chat, remember, it was all for you.
That was definitely a fun race. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a flag set or a seed that really has I don't know, like really thinking outside the box a lot more in a lot of different facets.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed it. So thanks to our racers, thanks to everybody that was involved in putting this together, thanks to Ceiling Cat for being our tracker, that was invaluable. And for all of our viewers out there, go check out Worlds Collide at ff6wc.com and you can get in on some of the fun like this.
Yeah, for sure. Like we said, check out the Ultras League, check out the Discord, check out our community races every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern and Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We always need more runners. We also always need more staff, commentators, restreamers, trackers. We are a great community powered by a lot of people who are very helpful, and we can always use more. So yeah, check it out. And with that, I think we're gonna raid Shuck Up, I believe is how you say his name. He is doing an Ultras practice seed. So if you're curious to see what Ultras entailed, stick around and join us for the raid.